Good morning, it's Butterfly. I realize I have not done some videos in a while, and that's par for the course. My life has gotten busy. I have taken on a few extra responsibilities, and it's turned my weekly schedule upside down in a few really wonderful ways. So, YouTube is somewhere in that list of priorities, but it's been moved down a few notches. So what I did a couple of weeks ago is I ended up two weekends ago, I ended up doing some videos all in a row, and then I post-dated I sort of scheduled their release. And so it made it so that I had a video every day, and I thought, what a great idea. I hope I can keep on doing that. And then I didn't keep on doing that. So I am going to continue reading from this book, not in this video, however. I just want to make a relatively quick video. I mean, we think it's going to be a quick video, but then when we start talking, then things happen. And there's a reason why we have channels, right? We are the people who can talk. So when we talk, yeah, we hope you listen. You might tune in. So today I'm just going to chat with you and share a little bit about my journaling. And this is a special kind of a topic because I'm doing a project. One of the things that has been occupying my time, I'm not going to give all of the details about it right now until next spring for sure, but at least I don't anticipate it, but one of the projects that I'm taking in within this group that I'm participating in, in a group. I'm going to just kind of call it that way for now because that's a safe way. And I can't like just keep it all away from you because I'm just so excited about this group that I'm part of. So anyway, sometimes we have a bit of, journaling to do in the group, and sometimes we have some tasks. Now I kind of take it to the nth degree and I do my own thing with it. We were sort of in agreement to do what is called a vision board. And I love vision boards. They're tremendously powerful in focusing my goals and what I want to achieve. And this one vision board that I did actually in early 2009 was quite productive because everything that I had done was in January 2009, and I had made specifically a vision board about what I wanted. I wanted to buy another house, and I wanted to have a yard this way, and I put in like specific things that I wanted. And then by June of that year, I was moving into, I had bought a second home, and I was living in this really wonderful place. Suffice it to say, I ended up moving back here and filling that place. But vision boards are really, really quite powerful. And this is a vision board that I'm going to be doing, but I'm not doing it as a board. I'm doing it with a junk journal type of, flavor to it. And it is going in my own journal, what some people might call a book of shadows, but it's my daily process. So the question that my group has sort of endeavored to put into whatever work you're doing. They're doing a vision board. I'm doing this junk journal mashup type thing. The question is, what do you need to have optimal health? That is the question. What do you need to have or to achieve optimal health? And that is emotional, spiritual, physical, mental, anything that you need. Put it on your vision board. And that's what we're going to be bringing back to the group. So, of course, what I have done is I ended up doing this. This is my vision board project. It's not quite a board. It's because it's going into my journal, it's going to be a little bit more. I'm going to put more into it. I'm going to put a little bit of my soul into it. So very quickly, I usually prepare some of these sheets, and you know that these are the sheets that I end up cutting up so that I can make these makeshift sort of adhesive strips. You know that you can buy these adhesive strips, those plastic things that you buy at, $1 billion for, two. I don't want to do it that way. I want to be ultra cheap. So I go and I get my adult coloring books, the ones that make, you know, sort of very vague, abstract things. And I color them, and I cut them into 2.5 centimeters wide. Then I, you know, tape them onto with packing tape, with very cheap buck store packing tape. I tape them. You can see the gloss where that goes. There you go. I tape them onto the sheets of paper, and that makes my journal. That's how I adhere them into my journal. That's what I found that works. So I've been going with that. And so here, I just want to show them to you before I actually end up cutting them up into a bunch of little strips. And there's shading in there and all kinds of stuff, so that when you end up looking at the page, you know, they're quite lovely. So this one, you can see the lines have already been drawn at 2.5 centimeters intervals, and then I cut them down. So you see that one. And how do I do these? I just do them as I'm watching, you know, my favorite YouTubers. This was really quite simple. I didn't even do any shading or anything exciting in each leaf. I just did them, you know, very quickly as I'm watching TV or as I'm chatting with family. I make efficient use of my time. And then what happens is I cut them up and then make these lovely strips. Now, sometimes at the end, you end up, here, this is a good way to show it. You end up with 2.5 centimeters, and you end up with this little itty bitty bit here at the end that doesn't quite measure up. Well, if you kind of put them enough together, those little itty bitty bits, because you're working with packing tape in this area, look at that. You can make a whole interesting, you know, doobly-doo. You can make an interesting doobly-doo. That's what you can do. So that gives you some ideas about journaling. Now this thing, I don't know, should I show it to you? I'm not going to show you my title page. That has my name. So the title page is going to go on this, and I'm going to put something on the back. Now on the back of things, I may end up, like I've been busy all weekend actually coffee staining pages for this. So what I did, this actually could have been brought to the group earlier this week, but I'm going to be giving it on Tuesday because I've decided to print up the digital work and add, you know, glue and junk to it because I like that. So what I'm going to end up doing is cutting off of the top and splitting this in half for each of the sheets that I have, putting the picture and the information on a vertical sheet, because this is kind of landscape. And then I'm going to take them, use some shading and some crayon and some whatever to put them vertically into my book of shadows. So if you're interested in kind of working on something and focusing on what it is that you think you need for optimal health, then they would make some pretty interesting entries for your own journal. So here, this is going to be the content before I cut it up. This is going to be the content. What I say for healthy food choices, that's one of the things that I need for optimal health. So healthy food choices, it is important to keep my nutrition in check. Processed foods are quick to prepare and to eat, which is convenient, but my physical health does suffer from it. If I omitted the unhealthy choices, my diet would be good because I do eat well, other than the crap that I put into my body. So there's just a lot of stuff, and if I omitted the crap stuff, I'd be left with good stuff. So to boost my nutrition, I add veggie greens powder, which is by a company called Progressive, to apple juice, which shows up in the blood work with more than adequate levels of nutrients. So when I'm actually done kind of embellishing things, I might make a separate video with a flip through of this, the finished product of my journaling. This one, I included somebody doing yoga and looking much like a pretzel. So exercise is important for physical health. And in fact, if we look at the 13 goals of a witch, that is definitely one of the goals of a witch, correct? That is one of the goals that we want to have. So that, really, when we think about what we need for optimal health, I'm thinking about the 13 Goals of a Witch, because a lot of those things are in there. In fact, let me just pull them out since I have this here with me. Let's look up the 13 goals. See, I have some other fun stuff here that has yet to be worked on. Oh, yes. Weekends are made for journaling. 13 principles of Wicca. Ethics of magic, Witch's Creed. 13 goals of a witch. Know yourself. Know your craft. Learn. Number 4 is apply knowledge with wisdom. 5 is achieve balance. Balance. There's interpretive value in that. Keep your words in good order. That's number 6. Now that, every time I read that, keep your words in good order, I also think of some very Buddhist teachings that talk to you about keeping your words in good order and your actions in good order. And perhaps actually, I have touched on that when I looked through some of the more Buddhist sort of entries I have in a different journal. But if you're interested in kind of knowing more of what I've journaled about those Buddhist teachings, do let me know in the comments below and we'll focus on that. For sure. That would be really cool. I think we should put that in my list of things to do. Okay. Number 7, keep your thoughts in good order. Your words and your thoughts. That again is looking at Buddhist teachings. Celebrate life. Number 8. Number 9 is attune with the cycles of the earth. Breathe and eat correctly. So that is eating healthy. That is what I just mentioned in the previous page there for my optimal health. The exercise your body, that is what I'm talking about right now. So that is number 11 in the Goals of a Witch. And number 12, meditate. I'm going to be showing you that. And number 13, honor the goddess and the god. That goes into, I can definitely talk about some of my thoughts about male and femaleness, and how basically I find that male and female, the way that we identify with the male and the female, certainly there's a little bit of both of those in each of us. But, recently I did a video on my Beltane altar, and I recently received a goddess statue, which I've put on my Beltane altar. It's still there. I'll be changing that, but I've never really had much of a male and a female kind of statues up until Beltane just recently. I have put statues of males and females, sort of whatever I had around, but they came in the form of like fairies and angels and cherubs and the Buddha. And they just happen to have a gender assigned to them. But I really don't focus very much on gender when it comes to my altar. I know that they are there, and I know that when you're looking at the wand and the chalice, that there are male and female attributes to each of those things. But I struggle to really identify a god and a goddess in my belief system, simply because I think that male and female is a very human, a very physical, grounded in earth kind of concept. And we need it for reproduction. But when it comes to deity, I don't know that deity really requires male and female aspects for reproduction. And I don't know that deity is really... reproduction is to survive. Part of being, a god, or having the god or goddess concept attributed to you, is that you don't have any mortality. You don't need to reproduce to continue on your own sort of propagation of the species, that sort of thing. You just don't need that as a god entity. I don't really think that the spirit entity that I kind of speak with, that I'm in communication with, has a gender. And I think that gender as male and female is quite reductive, because there's a fluidity that we now know a lot more about. it used to be that you were either a male or a female, and if you had some kind of, if you lived outside of that box, if you were kind of trans, or if you were gay, or if you were effeminate as a male, or if you were, very masculine, had masculine attributes as a female, if you fit outside of that norm of fitting in one of those two categories, then it used to be, historically speaking, that you would be seen as weird, and that people would allow themselves to point the finger at you and criticize you. Now we are finally, as a society, becoming a lot more tuned into the fluidity between male and femaleness, if that's a word. It's not really a word, but we don't have to be gender specific to be valuable. And I really appreciate being alive at this time in history, and in the country that I am, because I can enjoy that fluidity. And not really sort of, so what I'm saying is that when I redo my my altar, I think I'm going to go back when I do, when I prepare it for Letha, and I sort of change things up. I think I'm going to go back to the way that I had it before, and kind of not really have much of a representation for a male and a female. The idea that I'm kind of liking a lot more right now with that embracing fluidity is a pop pantheon, a pop culture pantheon. I see some really wonderful figures that I would like to put up there, because there are certain attributes in people that are putting their feet on the earth at this time or previous to my existence, and I really, really enjoy what they have brought as humanitarians to our culture. And I'm talking about people like Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Diana Spencer, Michael Jackson has brought a lot as a humanitarian as well. Now those are people of times past, but there's also Barack Obama and Oprah Winfrey. Certainly Madonna is really quite interesting. And another one that I've just recently, there's Jane Goodall, who I completely love for a lot of different reasons. There's another one that I've just recently kind of been tuning into. He's a YouTuber, and if you want to do yourself a favor, do tune into John McLean. If you don't know who John McLean is, and I don't mean John McLean, the teacher of years past. I'm talking about current existence. This 24-year-old who I really believe that he's an old soul. He will talk. Oh my goodness, he's a unique speaker. He's a makeup artist. And if you don't know who he is and you have not seen his channel, then do go and aim straight for John McLean when he does his Q&As. He's done Q&As 1, 2, and 3, part 1, 2, and 3. Start with number 3. That's my absolute fave. But do watch those first. If you don't really, like watching how makeup is put on and how people can create an illusion, you may not want to go just randomly to any one of his channels. But if you want to find out who he is and how he speaks, he's a unique speaker. And I think if I were to have a pop pantheon on my altar, perhaps displayed in the back, which I'm kind of envisioning, I think John McLean will definitely be one of the people who I put on there, because I admire how he is very fluid in his, he's like the every diva through history times 10. I absolutely I'm just in awe with this person. So, okay, enough about him. So the goals of a witch, principles of Buddha. I'm all over the page today, aren't I? Making it for lost time. These have crossed my mind as I'm talking about achieving optimal health. And so those are sort of the ideas and the concepts that I put into this project that I'm putting together to bring to my group on Tuesday. And they're principles that are seen across the board. When you tend to read from different schools of thought, from different fields of study, you end up seeing principles that carry true pandemically, across the board, there are principles that are true no matter if you look at history or philosophy or math or physics. And I'm very grateful to be able to kind of merge some of those ideas now and then, see where they actually meet. Because when you understand principles, you can then walk forward and carry those principles from various schools of thought, and they hold true no matter where you go. So these schools of thought hold true, and I'm carrying them through to this. Oh, where am I going to put my book? To this project that I'm bringing to my group. So, physical exercise. You need that for optimal health. Do I do it? Whew. Well, you know, I have the opportunity recently, and I've been feeling the effects. It's been about 2 weeks now, 2 weeks complete, that I have been going to this group daily, and I park quite far. I park about 2 kilometers away for the express purpose of getting exercise. So I park 2 kilometers away. I have to walk 2 kilometers to get there, 2 kilometers to get back, and I do that every day. It is a pain when it rains. It is not always pleasant. Yes, I do have the option to park closer, but you know, I'm not going to get more exercise than I do regularly unless I inject it into my day. So that is what I've been doing, because I'm really quite committed to attending to this group, and that's a way to do it. So I invite you to do the same, and that's what I've talked about here in my blurb about exercise. So the lady here, the image that she's a bit of a pretzel, and she says she's in a pretzel and she's trying to reach for her phone, right? So the person on the phone is answering and saying, "Yoga emergency hotline, how may I help you?" So of course, the easy way to integrate exercise into your life is to say that you're going to do yoga. And do we do it? You know, whatever. So exercise always sounds better in theory than in practice. I want to do more, and I neglect this route to optimal health. While I am coming to this group, though, I park about 2 kilometers away, which means that I walk 4 kilometers on weekdays. Exercise helps manage stress, body weight, and heart health. It builds resilience and immunity. So that is what I'm bringing. I'm going to end up chopping it up into little pieces and gluing it on my coffee-stained pages. By the way, be careful when you're making coffee-stained pages, because as I found out, I did these coffee-stained pages. I immersed my hands into a pan full of coffee to get these coffee-stained pages. Some of these pages I've done twice. I've stained, I've dried, and then I've stained again. And yesterday I had headaches all day. The coffee had actually been absorbed by my skin and my hands, and I didn't properly clean them. I rinsed them thinking everything was fine, but the caffeine gave me a jolt of coffee that I felt throughout the entire day. So don't do that. It's not good. Career and education. Here is another thing. So here is an image of a brain with all sorts of neural circuitry, but of course the neural circuitry also kind of makes us think about a tree, like a tree of life, right? And then here you have a little figure who's looking forward into the future with many different choices, and he's looking at career options. Now, also in this mess of a jumbled mess, I have little sayings. Oh, I'll show you at the end, actually. I'll show you at the end because I can't possibly find it right now. I have these little sayings that I've cut up and I've put here and there in my envelopes. And when I do a project like this, or when I work in my journal, I end up taking those phrases and I glue them onto pages where they belong. So I have one actually that's going to be for this page when I'm done. It's basically talking about how we're responsible for our own choices. So this is career and education, mental and physical health. And what I'm writing about that is I say, it has been said that money can't buy happiness. However, it can buy security and comforts. The lack of money and resources leads to ill health. For optimal health, I need a balance of time spent acquiring adequate income. Right? You're going to spend like at least 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 6 hours a day, whatever it is that you need to work for money so that you can pay for the home that you're not always in because you're out of it working to make money to pay for your home. But that's the rat race. That is it. I also need time to learn new knowledge and skills to improve my performance. Some people may be content with routine, but I need more to shake it up sometimes and learn more. And that, I think, is true for many people in the spiritual tarot community on YouTube. We are the people who have jobs, and then we come on YouTube and we have this kind of, extracurricular sort of activity. And we immerse ourselves in books. Well, many people do, but I feel akin to my people. Now, this I will feel safely enough. This was taken a few years ago. It's a picture of my girls when they were a few years younger, and they were feeding the ducks in a nearby sort of natural area that we go to. And it was just so beautiful that I had to take pictures. Actually, I remember the balloons that one of them is holding. My older one is holding here. The younger one had let her balloons go and they floated away or blew away in the wind. But this was Canada Day. This is July 1st, a few years ago. And then we stopped by and watched the ducks after the celebrations that we went to. So my girls and their wellness, that is what I need for my own mental and emotional health. If they are happy, I am happy. It is a codependent relationship, and frankly, while they are children, I'm okay with it. So yeah, we don't want to be codependent, but we kind of are by definition with our children, right? Their wellness, when they're well, then I feel well. If they're not well, I'm not happy. So, this is a picture from the net. Absolutely, I relate to this picture quite a bit. Two people having tea in a very Victorian type of setting. One of them has cameo here, and they have long dresses, sitting in a very English-style garden with a white picket fence. So this, to me, also speaks to my mental and my emotional health. For optimal health, I need a few good friends. Sometimes we make time for tea together, but sometimes we can only work out time for a phone call. Most often when we talk, we may think we have nothing to say, but then issues come up. Good friends and reciprocal friendships are important for optimal health, and do give this some consideration because sometimes we feel like we really have no friends at some lower points in our life. And it is really important. If you can have one good friend, then do cherish that. Do find yourself somebody who can reciprocate. The reciprocation in that friendship is very important. I went through years and years where I would give of my friendship to very lovely people, but very little reciprocation in return. I was always the one to do the phone calls, and I was always the one to go the distance, and I was always the one to go over and visit. Of course, with an invitation, I would never drop by. But this is really, really important. That's a very one-sided kind of relationship. Now, I understand as I mature through the years that is not only, it's much easier for some people to receive than to give. Perhaps some people feel more able to receive in their homes. But as I now see it, there are different phases in life, and that has a lot to do with friendships. When you have children, and some of my friends in my younger adult years, they had marriages, they had relationships, and they had children, and they had homes, and they had, I was basically married to going to school and going to work, and so I knew the pockets of time that I had, and I was able to sort of schedule my time quite predictably. But now that I have children and I look back and I see those friendships for what they were giving me the time that they had, and they may not have been able to predict times where they would be free, because when you have children, that's just the nature of it. You can't always predict when you're going to have available time. And sometimes when you know you're going to have available time for yourself, you really want to sit down and do nothing, not even have a thing to do, like call a friend. So my perspective is very different now, and it's morphed over years. But, suffice it to say that no matter where you are in your phase in life, whether you have children or you don't have children, you have to be able to feel like you have some reciprocal friendships. It may be that you're always the one going the distance to meet those friends, but if they're giving of their time and you're feeling like you're sharing of that relationship together, then that's important. Something that I would attract into my life years ago were people who were listeners. I can speak. I can develop a thought, and certainly on my channel, I give myself that route. If you are here, you are ready to listen. If you want to speak, you're going to be speaking to a screen, right? But so I give myself that venue. Now, how that reflects in my friendships, or how it has reflected in my friendships, is that I would really attract people who were liking to listen. Now I don't want that as much. I have worked hard over years to develop my listening skills, because I want to know more from people, and I want to get more kind of people in my life who have something to bring to me as well. I don't just want to be, saying what's on my mind. I want to know what's coming from other people as well. And that is a level of maturity that I've gained, that I've had to work for and kind of tune into. That was a lack of balance that I had in my relationships. So I don't know where you are in that, but do give it some consideration, because you need to have that reciprocity, that give and take in relationships to be able to have something that's really valuable. One of my closest friendships right now I have with somebody who I've known since high school, and we've been even closer over the last, I don't know, almost 10 years, a lot closer now. We were close at one point, and then life happened, and we're closer again now. Anyways, she always brings up, when she's going through some crisis times in her life, or some stressful times in her life, that I am a good listener, right? And she doesn't want to just kind of monopolize conversation and just spend that time divulging to me. And I say, you know what? You always say that with every conversation, but you know what? Sometimes I know I need to speak, and I need to vent, and I need time to kind of take my platform and say something. And I'm sure sometimes she wouldn't get a word in edgewise, but we have that kind of relationship where we do give and take. And sometimes it's not going to be 50-50 in every conversation, but over the course of the entire relationship, when we need somebody to talk to, we know where we can go. And so we are that reciprocal sort of friendship for each other. And you need that. You need that in your life. You need this is my vision of sitting over tea. And sometimes having tea means I have my phone and my cup of tea here, and she has her phone on her end, and she's doing whatever she's doing. But this is the vision I have of reciprocity, where you take the time to surround yourself in an atmosphere of love and beauty, and give yourself that gift of friendship. That's something that money cannot buy. This is, I think I may have shown you at some point some dried flowers that I had. So this is a page that's just been waiting in my journal for something, and I'm going to be putting that something this weekend. I had glued them together, these pages, with like just a painted paper, and then I didn't want them to be together joined there anymore, so I cut it. Anyways, these papers get massacred before they actually get used, and that's the way I like it. So on that page, I'm going to be cutting up this bit into different sections and gluing it on that page. This is books and reading. This is something that I need for my own mental health. Some people do not need it. I do. I don't think there's a room in my house that has absolutely no books. I'm sure I probably have some in my car. Most of them are probably maps or whatever, but I don't have a cell phone, so I will rarely go anywhere without a book in my purse. My purses have to be the size that I can shove a book into. Before I walk into a bookstore, I need to empty my books from my purse so that I don't, so that I can feel like my books don't look new, so I would never be accused of taking books off the shelf, but I always have to be mindful of that. I have to empty my purse of the book or whatever. So wherever I go, I know I'm going to have a moment to sit down, and I don't have a cell phone or an iPad or whatever. So what I do is I pull out, I'm very old school, I'm very dinosaur-like, and I like that. I open my book, and I will sit and I will read. That is the way I nourish my soul. That is the way that's what I need to be happy. So for optimal health, this is going into my project. This is part of my mental health, my mental being. What are you going to talk about if you don't read? I don't know. You're going to talk about the news of the day. If you're watching the news, well, that's going to give you topics of crisis and sensationalism. That's going to give you something to talk about. But if you read something of interest, you will always have something interesting to talk about with the next person you meet, right? If you see somebody who you just happen to bump into at the grocery store and you really want to sit and talk, or if you meet an old friend, you'll be able to kind of not just spew off facts, but you'll have something relevant to be able to say. So if you're missing something to say, you never know what to say, pick up a book. Every so often you might remember something. I know I have more things coming out of my brain than I do have coming in. Sometimes I remember things, and then it'll give you something interesting to talk about. If it's a social kind of a barrier for you in making friendships, give yourself the gift of going to the library and reading something of interest. Okay, so these are my lovely pictures that I put in there. Old books, bookworm. I'm a geek and I embrace my inner geek. I love it. So this is what I write. I must read. It's a thing. I do recognize that my buying books and reading books are two separate hobbies and may or may not have anything to do with each other. I probably buy a lot more books than I read. Let's just put it that way. I have books that are still waiting. They're still waiting patiently for me. And then I go and buy some more, which is completely tragic and wasteful, and I won't even. I'm not even. So they are two hobbies. They are two hobbies. And I guess it makes sense. Like, let's just say that you are a collector of figurines. You're not going to punish yourself for buying that figurine and not looking at it every day, right? So I'm not going to punish myself for not having read every book that's on my shelf. But the intention is there. You know, it's good to have good intentions. Reading books and journaling are integral features to my overall health. So the focus of this project is optimal health. So that's what I mean. Now, this copy page actually is pretty interesting because it has some texture to it, but it also has these little piercings here. That was my cat. My cat decided that he needed to put a bit of himself into there. So that's cat paws, and that goes into my journal as well. This is focusing on chakra, because you need this for optimal health, don't you? Chakra and energy systems. This is part of my spiritual health. I tune into the energies associated with my chakras. Whether the features of each chakra are scientifically proven or not makes no difference to me. This system is a mental exercise that opens me to be aware to other ways of thinking when I problem solve. Okay, so I have some typing errors in here. Oh dear. When I problem solve, reflect on life issues, or focus on my responses to stress. Okay. This is really important. Actually, I was just messaging with somebody this morning about these mental exercises and spiritual belief. Now, part of what we as a society like to do is to look at things like chakra systems and perhaps herbalism and moon phases and anything that has to do with belief system and put them aside from anything that's scientific, quantifiable, and factual. We want to put these two things separate. What we can scientifically prove is valuable to everyone as a whole. And then what we have to believe in is somehow less valuable. And I want to speak to that right now. The thing is that these are mental exercises. And put it briefly, when you put your mind to something, that is the first step in making it happen in reality. So without having to talk too much about mind over matter and how we have some kind of dominion over our own physical health just by the things that we think, we can definitely talk about that in a metaphysical sense, right? Taking your mind over matter. But the thing is that when we look at moon phases, when we look at chakra systems, when we look at anything that has to do with the esoteric, when we look at things that are, a belief system, what we are doing, in fact, is giving ourselves the time to contemplate, prioritize our goals, put our thought in our elusive energy, that word, and think about what we want to create in our lives. So and in that way, it's very factual. You can create in your life whatever it is that you do. We are all born we are all born. Now, we are born into different families and with different opportunities and different resources to us. But not everybody who succeeds comes from the same origin. Not everybody who fails comes from the same start. So something happens in between the time that you were born to the time that you are an adult. You make choices along the way, and those choices are the things that determine where you're going to be. Those choices come from thought first before they actually happen. So, one of the things we risk when we talk about metaphysics is the blaming. So that if you are in a bad situation, there is a certain innate blame. Well, you got yourself there. You know, you made your choices. Now lie in it. There's that blaming sort of aspect to it. And what I am saying is that perhaps you don't want to look at it so much as a blame, but as a way of accountability. You might want to look at it as accountability and say, okay, what can I own? What have I learned from what I have lived? And how can I change what I do to get to where I want to be? So it's really, those are the mental exercises that you want to go through to be able to reframe your thinking. And for me, it is a very, very spiritual exercise. So how does that relate to this sheet? Well, as I look at the chakras, and of course, we look at, 7 chakras, and then there's so many other chakras and everything. But the thing is that they're categorized energy systems. They are categorized ways of thinking. One has to do with very primal sort of needs and wants, and the other one had, like the base chakra, kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It starts with a very base chakra where you need sex and protection, and then as you work your way up towards the pyramid, towards the apex, towards the top of your body, you end up with that very purple and with that very white light chakra, and you talk about more of the self-actualization, the higher levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, correct? So, yeah, we know that. But you're basically working through all of your systems of chakras, and you're categorizing your ways of thought. So whether the chakras are actually there or not, whether people say they can see them or not, I don't see them. I don't see them. I would love to see these rainbow colors on each person, but I really, really don't. Sometimes I see in the very hazy some colors, in some situations, but generally speaking, I walk up to a person, they don't light up like a rainbow like this. They don't. But when I study those systems, I can focus on, okay, today I'm going to focus on my heart chakra. What does my heart chakra need? And if you study these systems long enough, you end up focusing on all of your needs and wants and where you want to be and how you, as a person, as a human being, as a spiritual being, as a ball of energy, how you want to manage and manifest things in your life. You see? So it doesn't really matter whether these things exist or not, scientifically speaking, and whether we can quantify it. It's a way to sort of focus in and do those mental exercises, you see. I'm hearing my dog whimpering, so I'm going to have to get through this so that I can let her in. This is another page that I've done. I put one of these things here, and I've glued some weeds from my garden, and I'm going to embellish that this weekend with my work. So I think on that blue one, what I wanted to do is I wanted to put some tarot. So tarot is another way that I use to achieve optimal health. So I put it into my project, of course. So tarot and oracle cards is a means of spiritual and mental health. Now, some people will come to me, and when I've done my live chats on the channel with tarot readings, they want to do divination because traditionally speaking, that's what people do. They do divination. Divination is divining. It's sort of looking into the future and predicting what you think might happen according to what the cards do, say, what they show. I can read the cards, and if you want divination, that's the sort of thing that is possible, but I really don't prefer it because if I predict something and it happens, that sort of creates a dependence on me to predict things, and why would you want me to ruin the surprise? And if it doesn't happen, then you can come back to me and say, oh, it didn't happen quite that way, and then you come into an argument about the validity of prediction and that sort of thing. I'm going to just pause this for one moment because my pooch wants to come in the house. Just put this on pause. There we are. Okay, and it's rolling. Good. So she has come into the house, so of course she's right beside me because she likes to be right beside me at all times. I do my hair, you know, I do it, but and there's even hairspray in it, but it just seems to be flopping all over the place. I'm at that point where I'm sort of trying to decide whether I want to grow it long or keep it short. Now that the color, the dark sort of brown that I was coloring my hair once upon a time, last June actually, and we are now at the middle of May, so we're at 11 months. So I expected it was going to be until the summer. I expected it to be about a year of growth before I got rid of all of that dark brown sort of very, very dyed hair. So yeah, this is all my natural color. This is sort of like a salt and pepper, silvery mixed up color. And you still have the ends here of the remaining brown that was left. And my hairdresser says that it looks ombre, because some people actually do frost their ends with, or do ombre at their ends. And it's just a way of coloring the tips. You can get it tipped, like a chocolate tip. And originally I had said, okay, well, I have a chocolate tip, but it starts right about here. Well, my chocolate tip has now finally grown to the end, and it's called ombre now, she says, because it's a gradual sort of a coloring that goes out. And I say, okay, that's fine, just as long as I don't look like an ombre, you know, or yeah, as long as I don't smell like a hairy ombre, I suppose I can do. See, the back here, it kind of looks darker because when your hair does change color, it starts by going lighter in the front. So I have whiter patches in the front and the hair in the back, and some of it has maintained my original natural color. So, but it's very salt and peppery all over the place. And of course, because the front ends up being whiter first, when you are dyeing your hair, you see the white at the roots a lot quicker, right, than you do. Anyways, I've gone through that growing out period. So anybody who wants to go through that period, it takes about a year, and you can go through my videos and see how I've kind of dealt with it over time, that change in color. So I didn't have that skunk line and so on. I didn't really do when I stopped coloring, I stopped. I didn't do any highlighting. I didn't do any, I just stopped. And I used scarves, and I used barrettes, and I used headbands, and I just ignored it a lot. So it's possible to kind of do that transition, and just let your natural color go. And why would we want to always have to put so much money into changing our hair color? I mean, I just got tired of it. I'm not one for pink and purple hair. I like looking at it on other people, but I don't think I would wear it very well. I would not wear it confidently. And so if you can't wear it confidently, then you shouldn't do it. So going back to tarot cards, tarot and oracle cards, what I was saying is that the way that I use the tarot and the oracle cards, especially tarot, is I don't do it for divinatory purposes. I also I'm not keen on astrology. I wish I was. I don't absorb that information very easily. I don't because, I don't know why. I just don't. It's like nuclear physics. It's like trying to make sense of just a whole lot of concepts that I don't get. So I don't do astrology. I read my tarot cards without it. And the way that I do it is it's all about personal development. It's very closely related to mental health for me. My tarot and my oracle cards are very, very closely related to they are my mental health. My mental and my spiritual health are like they're enmeshed. And the cards are my counselor. They have been my counselors for years. And the reason why I have been so successful in using my cards as my counselor is that it is a tool for introspection for me. And that is how I use it for other people as well. I try as much as possible, but I am not in their psyche, so it becomes a little challenging. I need to have some feedback with the tarot readings, so that I can, more easily tune into somebody else. But for my own optimal health, my tarot cards have been my my counselor over here. So the reason why is because those 78 cards do show, do represent every aspect of the human condition we call life. That is how I explain them. And they will talk about money. They will talk about love and emotion. They will talk about opportunity. They will talk about new beginnings. They will talk about cycles ending. They will talk about everything that you need. Money matters, family matters, and large events, the big ticket issues that happen in your life, and mundane and daily events, and the people that come into your life. They talk about all of those things. They represent all of those things. And that to me is tremendously useful, because the more you go to the cards, the more you can reflect on various aspects that that affect us all. And so in that way, they are not terribly predictive, and there's no kind of magic or elusive sort of, higher energy system that is necessarily telling you what you need to know. We can look at it that way, but essentially what it is that no matter what cards show in front of you, you will look at them and take from them what you need to know. So when I'm thinking about an issue, a problem, let's just say I go to the cards because I have an issue. I mean, you can go to the cards and say, I just want to get a message, generally speaking, doesn't matter what it is, just give me food for thought. You can do that. But quite often, if I have an issue that I'm talking about, and I'm thinking about, and I make a spread, a 1-card spread, a 3-card spread, a 12-card spread, whatever it is, usually I will go to a 3, 4, or 5-card spread. Those are my go-tos. And I get whatever cards come up. It almost doesn't matter what cards come up. I will get what I need from them. That doesn't mean that the cards are not useful because the message is so vague that it applies to everyone. No, that is not what I say. What I am saying is that they are so versatile, and I know what my issue is, that I will reflect back to myself what I need to know, and they become my good counselor. And if you go to a good counselor, a human being who goes to school to learn how to be a good counselor, they will do the same. They will reflect back to you what you need to know. I think we all know what we need to know. Sometimes we just need a reminder to do the right thing for you. You know what you're going to do. I have confidence in your ability to make your decisions. So read your cards to yourself. If you go to a consultant, such as myself, a tarot consultant, I can work with you, to talk to you, to get the message that you want to have from the cards. But you need to have some communication that way. If you want to have nothing to say to me, then I can give you a general thing. But the more you speak, the more you get that consultation, the more you get that attunement. And there really is very little magic about it. It's about connection to messages. It works because it's versatile. That is the strength, not a weakness. So, in that way, tarot and oracle cards have been tremendously useful for me in my life. So I put a picture of that in here. And what I said in my project, what I'm bringing is, I see tarot and oracle cards as essential to my ongoing health. I use these frequently with a journal as a tool for introspection. They have often served as a counselor, not a tool for divination. Okay, so that is my next thing. This paper, this coffee stained paper, was dried with, basically on one of these things. Not this thing in particular, but this sort of rubber mat you get. Yeah. So it's all rolled up and it was cleaned it's in the sink right now. But this is what, so it printed with the coffee, printed, and it kind of gives a very quilted sort of embossed sort of a feel to the sheet. So if you like to do that with your sheets, of course the ends of them are a little bit dark. I don't know if you can actually see it. I'll put it against the lighter colored wall. See, the ends are more coffee stained. Anyway, so that's going to go in my project too. Oh, and I also got another idea. What I have done with some staining, I'm all over the map today, and it's just going to have to be okay. We're just sitting here talking, Do your dishes, clean your house, sit down, close your eyes, and listen to me speak. Okay, I want to show you when you use stencils or cookie cutters or something like that on coffee stain pages, or in this case, it was food coloring that I used. I think I showed you this before. See there? Those are stencils. You see the little embossed sort of like, you see a little bird up on top and you see a little tree over here. Of course, there's sprinkled tea on it as well in a tea bag that I kind of let sit there in the corner. There's another little bird here on the corner. You can see that. Yeah. And on the back, I think you can see that as well. That as well. You can see them also, although not as clearly. Yeah, here's another one. So when you're copy staining your pages and doing your projects and your journal pages, there's like a tree, a branch that comes out. And there's a half a cloud with some rain. That's what was on the stencil. So you may be able to see that. And of course a tea bag that I let sit there. So those are interesting pages that are waiting for another day. I think those ones have a topic though. They're in a section. Yes, I'm talking about rhythms and cycles, and so that's waiting for another project altogether. I'm slowly working through a book that talks about cycles, and so those pages are reserved for that section in my book. And speaking of cycles, this is the next page. I have the moon phases, so this is why I was talking about this with someone just earlier today. So moon phases. So I did take this off the internet. It's a picture you can easily find of the moon phases, where you have the sunlight coming in from here and how it appears to us on Earth and the cycle of the moon. And so what I said about that is, as odd as it may seem, I have looked to many systems of alternative health, including Wicca and witchcraft. The way I approach this is metaphysical. See, I think, when people ask me if I'm a witch or if I'm Wiccan, and I do that. Absolutely. It's been long-standing since my early 20s. I think I'm more metaphysical, and you can definitely be a witch and still be metaphysical. But because the word witch really kind of conjures up different meanings to different people, if I call myself something, a label, it's very reductive. It's very reductive, and I also don't have the control or the time to educate. I don't have the time to control or educate other people on how they receive that information. Oh, you're a witch. What is that? Oh, you look crazy. It doesn't interest me. So to say that I'm definitely a metaphysical practitioner, that is nice and general and very appropriate, I think, because I really am quite eclectic in what I do. The way I approach this is metaphysical. I typically write out what I want to attract with regard to the full moons. So full moon phase, what I want to attract, or banish, new moon phase. That's what I do. So I know some people it's the opposite. They do opposite that. But what I do is when I want to attract and amass, then I look at the moon as accumulating and getting bigger to the full moon phase. And then when I want to diminish and reduce and bring something away from me, then I work with that with the waning moon and into the new moon. Then I will stimulate my senses with incense and sage and candles and song bowls and other tools to help me focus on my goal. That's my process. That's what I was talking about earlier when I was saying it's a mental exercise. You can take, a group of 1,000 people and do all of the scientific, analyses that you want, and say, has the moon had any effect on what they want or what they don't want? But really, if you're not going to put the mental focus into it, it's about mental focus with or without the moon. It's mental focus. These things that we do, these tools that we use, are basically an outward expression of what's happening inward. So it doesn't matter whether you use a wand or a moon or crystal ball or crystals or whatever. It's how these things help you to focus. It's an outward it's an outward expression. It helps us to organize our thoughts, these tools. That's why we say when you're a witch, you really don't need to have any tools at all. You can just sit and think a thought and it'll happen. When you get that good, when you get that focused with experience, you no longer need the tools. But definitely the tools are helpful. Here's another page. It has a bit of a wrinkle in it. Some texture, more coffee stain. That's what I did this weekend. This was done previous. This was some flowers that I pasted together. I think I'm going to need to use some more glue to make sure that they don't unstick. And then I'll put something on behind here. That's going to be part of my project. And behind there, I'm going to put these little pictures. Here, tarot reading together. And here, all backwards reading. All workouts aren't just physical. So when you're talking with your therapist, right? When you're talking with your therapist, that's my image here. When you're talking with a counselor, right here, that is your mental exercise. That is you speaking with your friend, with your counselor, with your tarot cards, that dialogue that you have with your higher self, during prayer, during spellcraft. That is a workout. And they're not physical workouts. You're not working with you're not exercising your body, you're exercising your mind, your thought. So this is something else that I need for mental health, for optimal health. And it's basically a space. Now, doesn't everybody want to be in? I would want to be in there. This is bringing the outside in. This is giving yourself a space where you can put all of your favorite things and definitely see outside into nature. This would be heaven to me to have a room like this. Of course, living in the Northern Ontario climate, as I do, it would be very difficult for me to have a room like this and be comfortable in it year-round. 8 months out of the year, it would be uncomfortable. 2 months out of the year, it would probably be very, very hot. The remainder of the year, I'd probably find something else to complain about. But theoretically, I would love this. I love my country, but the climate that comes with it. Teeth. Okay. This is another thing that I'm going to put in there. And you see how when I cut them, it got frayed a bit? I like that. I like that. So old books and tea, those were just the images that I love. So this is another thing that I've noticed is the pansies, which are my favorite flower. They often come with this very male protruding thing that I've yet to look up. If anybody knows anything about why these flowers have this very, very male protrusion here, please let me know. Or unless that's the beginning of every flower before it becomes this, or maybe that's the end after it's this, it grows a seed. I'm not sure. But I have noticed that many flowers come with a group of flowers and one very male-looking phallus, proboscis. I don't know what you want to call it. It's not really proboscis. It's more of a seed. Because as far as I know, flowers have both male and female within them to reproduce. So I don't think you need, I don't know. Pansies. I'm going to have to look that up. This will be on a coffee stained page as well. Oh, and there's a little bit of food coloring there that got there for I don't know what reason, but it got there. And these are from the soul cards. Now, I have finally bought both decks, the soul card decks, deck 1 and deck 2. I have them. But I've made copies of them because I'm going to talk about them and what they mean to me. Because when I work with people, I want to be able to work with their on a soul level. So now I'm looking at those soul cards, and that is something I'm going to be integrating into my practice, into my spiritual work with tarot. I want that, even if it's just doing a reading and then pulling a soul card at the end as an oracle. Or I'm not sure yet exactly, but I want to integrate it. I want to be able to offer that as a product, as a reading. And these are also something for optimal health. I mean, of course, you need everything herbal in tea and then in other formats as well, right? To ingest all sorts of healthy things. And the colors are so vibrant. Now, these. Maya Angelou. See, this is me starting to really sort of tie into my pop culture pantheon, which I think I'm going to actively start embracing more and more. So this is the first picture. Maya Angelou. You can't get better than that. A wise woman wishes to be no one's enemy. A wise woman refuses to be anyone's victim. By Maya Angelou. So that's going to go on there. And on the same page, we're talking about wise women. Everything in your life is a reflection of a choice you have made. If you want a different result, make a different choice. Right? Definitely. And this also says, a wise woman once said, F this Do I want to put that on my... I'm putting it in my project. Okay. F this shite. And she lived happily ever after. This is available on the net, and I love it. It's beautiful. Okay. There we go. This is a depiction of some card readings, which is definitely introspection. So whether you do it at yourself, on your own, your introspection, where you're reading books and you're... This is very inviting to me, this space. This, I love this. And this is also very inviting to me, where you are working with the moon and you are just putting yourself around in nature. I put myself in both of these cards. That's scenery that's attractive to me. And that is finding the seat of your power, acquiring knowledge, and then also getting your knowledge from books and getting your knowledge from nature. That there's just so much to be seen in those cards. This is another picture that I want to put in there as well, because I find those things very attractive. The candles, the herbs, the books, the health, the floral scent that I can smell just coming from there. Somebody is very, very busy working with things, and there's actually a key there on top of the, like a skeleton type of key on top of the books. So to me, that's a very attractive space. So this is a little burnt edge thing that I have kept. I'm going to put that in my project as well. These are some of these sayings that I was talking about that I've gotten from various calendars. So like this, I'm going to put these in appropriate places once the project is done. So men's natures are alike. It is their habits that carry them apart. Confucius. Friendship is a sheltering tree by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Another quote, I make it my business to have a great day every day. Wilma Gone Blotter. It is always wise to look ahead, but difficult to look further than you can see. Winston Churchill. That's going in there. If you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there. So you know that place where there was all those roads kind of going, that picture I showed you? That's by Lewis Carroll, and that's going in there. A moment's insight is sometimes worth a life's experience by Oliver Wendell Holmes. That is insight. That is your insight you're getting. I'm probably going to put that moment's insight maybe from the moon. That's probably where I'll put that, but we'll see. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can be achieved only by understanding. That was said by Albert Einstein. That particular point is going to be on this very lovely tie-dyed sheet or coffee-stained sheet with lots of texture on it. And this is a letter that I'm going to write on that sheet. It is a letter to the facilitator of the group that I'm going to, that just telling her, I think once it's all written and kind of polished off in the end result, I might just read that letter to you when it's clean. But it's basically saying how much I appreciate it, even though I've only just met her and I've only been working with her for 5 days. She has a way of working with group dynamics that I want to be a leader like that. there's accountability. There would have been opportunity that I've seen for kind of like a bullying type behavior. You know how in every group there's always one person or a few people who take over the dynamics with very loud, bothersome behaviors, sighing and snide remarks and that sort of stuff. There was somebody like that, and kind of collects sort of like the social approval of others, and that's how cliques get formed, and it becomes a very bullying behavior. I'm quite familiar with that. I'm usually on the receiving end because as an empath, I pick that up. And I know that there are people who are watching this channel or this video who you can also relate. So I'll talk about it because it's not about me. You know, each person has their own behaviors, but when you come together as a group, everybody's behaviors, they all take part in the chemistry, the biochemistry of the group, the dynamic. And I'm too old for this stuff, you know, like F this shit. You know, I'm just too old to kind of get tied up into this nonsense anymore. I used to kind of get tied up with that and feel inadequate, like if somebody was kind of giving that sort of vibe, that I'd be the one to pick up on it. And generally speaking, what I've learned this past week is, and I've known, it's just that I had to take home like aha moments this week, working in this group, and I knew it was all about her. I knew it was, you know, like she gives sighs and stuff, but not only just when I spoke, but when other people spoke. And it was, and then I have a friend who I speak with in this group, and she brought up that, you know, that kind of behavior is very bothersome, and she's going to talk to the facilitator about that. And I thought, this is a group of people that are like-minded. This is a group of empathic people who want to help other people. It's the nature of the group that you know, how we're getting together. It's the reason why we're getting together. And I've just had so much appreciation for the people that I'm meeting. And in particular for the facilitator, because I don't know if she realized that she was teaching by doing, but I have learned by watching her and the way that she works with people, that she brings out the best in people, and the inappropriate behaviors that we were seeing, she will say, you know, we'll have to talk about that after. We'll have to talk about that later. So I would assume that she would follow up and talk to that person about the very loud sort of things that she was doing to bring attention to herself all the time. And, you know, I've known people like that in the past. And when they kind of throw those darts, those social darts, those words, I would be so accommodating, and I would receive those darts, and I would self-destruct in the group, and I would be the scapegoat. And that was really destructive to me as I kind of absorbed those dynamics time and time again throughout my life. This time I didn't do it. And, you know, I didn't even have to speak up for myself because other people were appreciating, you know, that was not just, they were cluing into the dynamics, and it's just a quality group. But what I'm trying to say is that this week I realized that the person who was kind of spewing out these it was all about her. She was not aiming at me. She was not aiming at one person or the other person. Years ago, I would have taken some of what she was spewing out as, oh my goodness, and I would self-destruct. I would absorb that. I would become a target. I would say, oh, you know, put a great big bullseye right here because I'm going to absorb it. And then, of course, typically what happens in that kind of dynamic in a group is that the other people are not assertive enough. They don't have the social skills. They don't have the dynamic, the wherewithal to kind of speak up for themselves and say, don't, you know, the best I would get was, don't let it bother you. That's just the way she is. But really, when you see that kind of bullying behavior, those bullies seek out. They have radar for people like I used to be, and they find their targets. And the targets identify themselves as, oh, I'm not good enough. I resemble that remark, you know. And so I now see it in a different light, and even though I'm probably not finding the right words to explain it, I'm trying my very best to share with you a process that I've gone through in maturing, to realize that if you're being bullied, you do have a certain amount of control over your own reaction and your own interpretation of the situation. And when other people have garbage to spew, it's really too bad for them, because they can't give to you the love and the unconditional positive regard that you want, because maybe they don't have it to give. It doesn't bother other people because it doesn't reflect on them the same way. They've had a different upbringing, perhaps, that you had. And so they take it in a different way, or they don't take it at all. But if you find yourself being the target, find ways to assert yourself, learn more about those group dynamics. And the reason why I think it's really, really important is because some of the effects that this kind of dynamic has pandemically is, with bullying, it results in school shootings and, these shooting sprees that we hear more about now in the news. And it starts in very small groups, just like this one, in the classroom, in groups at work, in your workplace. Your personality, who you are, will follow you. And you need to develop that and get counseling and read books, or get whatever sources you can to sort of change your perception about what you're willing to absorb and what you're willing to give out into the world. Because some people just get so frustrated. And I understand that frustration. Because this particular facilitator, and that's why I'm writing her a thank you letter, because this particular facilitator has knowledge about how to work with a group and how to make people accountable for their social responses and what they put into a group, and how they are just accountability. Right? When you are sitting down passively as a facilitator and not doing anything, when your teachers sit passively and watch kids be bullied, and they watch those kids spend time alone at recess, staring at the wall, all alone, feeling rejected day after day. That's a problem. I've seen this week the effect that a really good facilitator can have on a group through not a lot of effort that I'm seeing, just by accountability. That when something happens, you make that person accountable. I'm just filled with appreciation. Because I think about those massive shootings and stuff where people have gone through so many group dynamics, frustration. And when they see that other people aren't coming to their rescue, they're giving their locus of control externally, people aren't coming to their rescue, and they get angry at all the people around them. And so that's I'm not justifying why they go out and shoot people. I'm just saying that that's the thought process I think that is going on. And you need to make sure that your locus of control, your sense of self, your seat of control does not lie with other people. You need to know that you will have your own worth. But it also really helps when the facilitator, the teacher, implements certain dynamics in the group that helps people to work together, and help each other, and that we depend on each other, and we're interdependent, and we all have to kind of pull together and be accountable to one another, and how what we say matters to each other. That's really important. And I think that sort of dynamic should be much more implemented in schools, for one thing, and in the workplace. It's an emotional and a social first aid that now we've identified bullying as a problematic behavior in schools and in workplaces. We have to go the distance now and educate ourselves more in how each person, not just the teacher, but each person in a group dynamic has to be accountable for what you give out to somebody else. Everybody. That's very important. Very important. And I hope I have the energy to follow through and do something. But if you have any comments to leave down below, or if you have a video response, certainly to this, that we can share with the world, of how we can be accountable to each other in a group every single day, I'd really appreciate hearing from you. So, yes, when Albert Einstein says peace cannot be kept by force, it can be achieved only by understanding. You have to understand each other. and how you matter to each other. So that is going into my letter to the facilitator in this project. I don't know how that's going to fit in there, but it's going in there somewhere. Pretty pictures. And then, of course, this sheet you're not going to see, but it's going in there too. And it is the job that I want. I saw a posting for a job that I want. It's a switch in my life a little bit. Ideally, I would love to have this job, so I'm putting the job description there. Right now, I qualify for this job, though I have to polish up on some of the skills required for it. Technically, I do have the predisposition for it, like the foundation for it. So I'm working towards that. And by this time next year, maybe I'll share more with you what this job entails, and perhaps I'll be sitting in that seat, and I'll be hopefully doing that, making that transition over this next year. So we'll see how that works. But that's part of my vision. That is in my vision board, and making much more income than I have right now and taking on a bit more responsibility in this way, that's what I need for my optimal health as well. So this has been my ramble for about an hour and 20 minutes plus. But I haven't spoken to you for about 3 weeks, literally. And I wanted to connect. So this is what I've been working on. I have been busy. I have not been checking my email, the Butterfly Magic with Hot Tea email, for a while. I know that there's at least one person that I have neglected because these other things have been taking priority in my life. And for that, I will apologize to her and make things right in the very near future. So I hope to get that done. Okay. As an aside, I do have an ongoing contest with regard to making your own tarot deck or your own oracle deck. So right now we're aiming for a subscription of 400 subscribers to my channel. When I do that draw, I'll have 400 subscribers minimum and then add 3 days. We are working on the pips, numbers 2 through 10 in the cups suit. And if you want to have more information on that, do look on my channel in the playlist where there's a tarot section playlist. And there will be hashtag make my own deck 400 for the current contest. And to know more about how the template of the contest goes, you can go to the previous contest, which is hashtag make my own deck 250, where I was aiming for 250 subscribers. And part 1 and part 2 will give you the template for how to make your deck. Okay, and even if you are a super great artist and you just make tarot decks for fun, you can definitely still enter. Everybody's welcome, as long as it's your own work. Have a wonderful, great day, and onward and upward. I wish you all the best. Enjoy the weather.